market's a live Q&A. Buy side, sell side, clearing the way. CEO spitting truth, no delay. Chalice and Gamera owning the day. Adam drops gems, he's breaking it down. How the buy side spins.
When buy side meets sell side, it's less dangerous. Here's Adam and Gareth to entertain us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Adtech Ad Talk. We are so happy you're here to join us today. Please ask us questions. I actually had somebody email us questions this week. I'm excited to chew through them in detail. We have a blog post. We have X posts. It's gonna be epic. And I have just so many things to be angry about right now. Adam, how are you?
I got a happy news. I just listened to our friend Jonah on the what podcast was he on? Open Markets, the one with Joe Zappa, the guy you were arguing with about on-prem.
Oh my gosh.
It turns out he has a PhD in some like post-structuralism thing that Jonah's dad was a professor of, and in the podcast they go off talking about the extended metaphor of French postmodern theory and
Keep going.
I really
Keep
enjoyed.
going, Adam.
I enjoyed, but Jonah was great. Jonah's the best talker in ad tech. You know, we're all talkers, we're all sellers. We all could talk our book and talk a history of ad tech. But Jonah's he's the best. He's the best at it. So I recommend his podcast. He has some history. He talks about his former company, Moat, and his new company called Mobian. And I'll give you the significance to us is that Mobian, the name of his new company, is a reference to the Möbius strip. You know what that is?
Right. The impossible
It appears
image,
to have
right?
two sides. It appears to have two sides, but it only has one side. Just like that's the concept of our show, right?
Oh, wow.
And if
That's
you
a
start
deep
from any
cut.
one point and pull the thread, right? If you draw a line from any one point, you'll touch both sides. And that's our story. Our
It's the
Möbius story.
truth.
It's
I
true.
love that.
It's
I
deep
mean,
truth.
honestly, Adam, good artists copy, the best artists steal, right? So like we're stealing that. That's fantastic.
It
because
is, right?
because my life is like is the collapse of the dichotomy. I think it's really important. I think you're really, really, really right. And we've talked about this before. The publisher community constantly talks about like how they're getting screwed. And like it really is. It's a pet project of the publishing community. Is well, how are the buyers and the middlemen getting us this time? And it's just one of those things where incentives are actually aligned in a real proper buy side implementation. Publishers and advertisers both want the right thing to happen, which is they want everyone to achieve as many outcomes as possible at like the best market price that can be achieved. And it's crazy, man. It's really
Markets
interesting.
work. So, you know,
Markets
if our
work.
market's not working, instead of blaming the other side, like look for other just
Oh,
constantly blame the other side. Like there might
well,
be
we
other
just
causes of dysfunction.
in total happenstance, we stumbled on my blog post this week. Adam, did you read my blog post?
No, I'm on vacation, but I did receive it in my email,
No.
and I started reading it, and I was like, "Whoa, I need to really." As usual, I started. I'm like, oh, "This is too thick. I need a quiet room, and glass of
I get
wine."
that a lot. So I can explain it really quickly.
Yeah,
In the publisher world, ad exchanges have rolled out contracts with something called dynamic revenue shares. And you
yeah,
are familiar with this because you're familiar with Bernanke.
yeah,
Bernanke is an implementation of dynamic revenue shares in the
yeah.
ad exchange world, where basically instead of an ad exchange simply deducting a certain amount of money from the bid as the transaction is processed,
Yeah,
they
so their
build some
fee might be
intelligence.
10%. If their fee is 10%, they take 10% off every bid for themselves. So if the bid's a
They,
dollar, the bid comes through as 90 and they take 10.
you
But it's
got it.
actually
That's a
better
static
for the
rev share.
publisher if they vary this, right?
Well, so it's better and it is better in its pure implementation. So in my article, I talk about what I would consider to be a pure implementation. God, that sounds so intense. In a like virtuous implementation, but then I talk about the shenanigans that you can get up to when you really start to play games with this. And I think that there are good actors who do this in a virtuous way, and there are bad actors who do this in a way that can be really deceptive and really ugly. And the virtuous way is I call this flexing down. So the virtuous way is static rev share 10%. $1 bid comes in, 90% bid goes out. The virtuous way is the exchange did some math and they go, hey, you know what? We think the clear price for this impression is going to be 95 cents. And so we think that our 90-cent bid is actually going to underbid the market and someone will beat us. And someone will bid 93 cents, get the impression when we would have been willing to pay 95 because we would rather get, right, 5% of something than 100% of nothing.
Yeah.
So they modify their rev share in flight and they bid 95 cents. They win. They're happy. They make their 5%, but they still made some money. And it's way better than no money. That's a virtuous dynamic rev share in my mind. Where it gets funky is when they flex both up and down. And don't get me wrong, there is still a market argument to be had here where if an exchange can win with a bid, that's a good thing, right? The publisher is ostensibly making marginally more money. And this is actually what my blog post examines is that's my immediate reaction to this is always the markets are good. The markets are going to figure this out properly. But where things get weird is when they say, hey, we think the clear price for this is going to be significantly lower than the bid we got in. So we're going to jack our revenue share way up. So we got $1 bid. We think the clear price is 50 cents. So
Wait. The way I thought dynamic rev share worked is, all right, my fee is 10%, but you'll dynamically move it up and down and it'll average 10 at the end. So I paid the
that's how
same as I
Google
would
did
have
it.
paid if it was flat. That's the way Google.
So it is. And where that gets ugly is when sometimes they take really low fees or like Google did. Google took negative fees. So Google would literally take money from
Jack
one
the bid up,
advertiser
yeah.
and add additional cents to their bid to get it to clear. But then sometimes take a 50 or 60% fee, right? Where you get $1 bid in, you think the clear price is 50 cents, you bid 51 cents, you take a 49% fee on the transaction. Yeah. Ostensibly, that's a competitive market equilibrium. The publisher is making more money there. But the argument that I make in my blog post and in my paper on this is that when dynamic rev shares are not transparent, one of the inherent problems in digital advertising becomes a much bigger problem. And that problem is that buy-side logs are not aware of middleman fees versus working media fees. And if the middleman fee is equal to or exceeds the working media fee with enough frequency, a publisher can be optimized away from because they think that it's ROI negative. And the advertiser in that instance is really blaming the publisher inventory for being too expensive when it's only too expensive because the middleman is adding a bunch on top because they've basically gamed the buyer's bidding system. And so the brunt of my article is that there actually could be damage to publishers in dynamic rev share scenarios where sometimes the buyer is taking 50% because in Chalice's logs, all you see is, oh, this cost me $1, even though 51 cents went to the publisher.
But our buy side sees the real closing cost, right? Part of the RTB protocol is to send the actual closing cost back. So even if my buy side tech doesn't share that with me, and most of my buy side tech does, then we see the actual closing cost.
But you do not see how much of that closing cost was fee and how much was working media.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't know what fees there were. Some of them could have been buy side fees that we don't necessarily know about. Yeah,
very true. I don't know if buy side companies take variable fees. I would actually. It's harder to do on the buy side because you're not bidding into like.
Well, bid shading is a big one, right? Bid shading is a huge variable fee.
That's true. God, people shouldn't charge for bid shading, but bid shading, right, is reducing bids. I think like adding more to bids to make more money is also, I'm sure, a thing on the buy side, but it's kind of transparent in that.
I never thought about that. Like bid shading and internal rev share are both going after the same pot of money of people who bid too high.
Yeah, totally. It's so interesting. But the brunt of my article here is we need to start documenting what's an ad tech fee and what's working media. We have the technology to do this. Every single participant in the supply chain could very, very easily append what their fee was on a given transaction. It's super technologically like available. It's totally there.
It's a data issue, right? Now that there's so much predictive software available, anybody with a bunch of log data can predict closing costs
You
with
got
decent
it.
accuracy. Yeah.
Totally. And
And
this is like,
seems like that would straighten out the market a bit.
and I think that in my defense of publishers for this, is it's really not fair that buyers make decisions about what publisher inventory they're buying at the domain level and not at the supply path level. And but buyers do make those decisions. And so that means that a middleman who is adding a bunch of fees opportunistically because they've modeled clear prices well could ostensibly make publisher inventory look like it's ROI negative for an advertiser, when if they actually look at the working media cost, it's ROI positive, and they just went through the right supply paths. But like the tools just really aren't there to do that. And this is the brunt of my article, where it's not fair to publishers when all
It's
these fees get
so a
taken out
middleman
dynamically.
who's but any middleman who adds so much fee that people go off that domain isn't, they're not making any money for that domain. So they should
Not
be.
long term. Short term, they make more, and they don't care. Because if there's one thing I've learned about the sell side, it's that, and I actually, oh, this is a fun product one. Oh, this came up the other day in a conversation. There are no sellers out there that monitor advertiser churn as a function of fee. They don't do it. They don't say, "Hey, our fees are too high. The total count of advertisers that's buying across our network is declining." No one does it, and they should. Everyone is a myopic short-term thinker. They think, "Hey, how much money can I squeeze out of every single auction that's there?" And they A/B test it, but no one says, "Hey, over the past 6 months, we rolled this thing out, and the total number of advertisers that's advertising on our exchange went down," which or
Yeah,
even just monitor the statistic over time. We average 200 advertisers per quarter. Is that number going up or down based on changes
that's
we make?
crazy. In their
They
in
don't
their
do it.
direct sold business where they have a sales team and things are hand sold and the dollars are bigger, they probably track all that. They have a CRM, they have relationships with all these companies. They're keeping track of whether they're buying more or less every year. And it's
Totally.
a lot of times it's the same companies in the other bucket, right?
Yeah, man.
And they
They're
just
overpricing, and they'll know when they're overpricing, where they're like, "Hey, we're losing market. Like the advertisers are churning out, they're not renewing, and their price is too high."
So
That
this
feedback
is
loop
why
doesn't
when I
exist,
look at
man.
like where our impression, where Chalice is sending the most money, it's the same few companies that are not household names, and it's not really big sellers except Yahoo. It's not,
Yep.
big
You got it, man.
publishers.
And these dynamic rev shares are in there. There's all this stuff in there, and I really like. This is a push that I think should come probably from the buy side, because I talked to this company Fiducia that does log level analysis for the A and A,
Yeah, I know
and
them.
they're working on it. They're working on stuff like this, but it's really hard to tie this together. And we have sellers.json, right? We have OpenRTB where you can send data in fields really easily. I think all it would take is one DSP and one exchange to go, "Hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to append our fee to every transaction that happens." And then one of these log level companies can go through and say, "Oh, look at this. This is your working media cost. This is your middleman fee." And we know this for certain. We didn't
Yeah,
have to model it.
I think you're, I think you've overshot the mark. I think this is easily done and has been done. Analytics did a report like 2 years ago on everyone's middleman fees. It just didn't get a lot of attention. Yeah.
Well, and Fiducia has an amazing UI. Like people have built this to model this. But the problem is all of the models have to be done where you kind of take a big old number from over here, a big number from over here, and you try and see what the publisher clear price was. You can kind of get at
Yeah.
it sometimes for some publishers.
I'll do this for any advertiser who uses Trade Desk and Index.
This should be a thing. And you should
Yeah.
have because imagine, right? Like when you're optimizing a campaign, in theory, you have like for every impression, this is my ideal working media ROI and this is my middleman ROI. And you have those are two separate numbers. They get added together for your bid, but like this could be optimized. This could be crazy. And then we
Yeah.
might actually have people competing on the fees that they take for real inventory. This could become
On
a
the
thing.
buy side, yeah, I'd be love to meet someone who really wants to know. My experience is they don't really want to know. I was talking to a consultant friend of mine who advises the C-suite. He's an investor
Yeah.
and very high up. And he said like the main metric that the CEO looks at in advertising is your spend compared to your competitors. And they want it to be higher, right? So the pressure on the CMO is to keep the spend
Spend
as
more.
high as the competitive set. Or So, so if you talk to them about saving money and spending less, you could be, it's kind of the wrong direction for most
I
CEOs.
mean, let it be known, any CMO who needs help spending money, I can help. I
Yeah.
I can
That's a,
I
that's a,
can
there's a
help
lot of
you
competition
deploy.
around that.
I can
You have
help
to
you
have a
deploy
logo.
capital.
You have to have a logo that won't get questioned, right? So you have to spend a ton of money on marketing. You
Should I
have
make my
to
logo a rainbow G?
you have to invite that C-suite to something it can. It's like,
Mm.
it's not, there's no easy money. Like there's dumb money, but it's still hard to get. And but I don't know. There is others like Hershey is definitely their Charles Klein. They're definitely punching above their weight. Their percent of spend is lower than their competitors, and their advertising effectiveness is higher. So hopefully, at least in consumables, CPG, like people will notice and say, "Oh, how are they doing that? And should we do that too?" Because the percentages are big. Like there's it used to be, I think 10 years ago, if I was go to the CEO and be like, you could actually spend less than your competitors and have more ad effectiveness. And he'd say, how much? And I'd be like, 10%. And it's like, eh. But now it's like 40%. Right.
Well,
So, so
so and I
just the
have
tech's gotten so
a
much better.
and the reason I wrote the article was because I knew that people have talked about this on the buy side when it comes to transparency, right? Like the T word gets thrown around a lot,
Yeah.
and people don't really care. I agree with you. The perspective of the article was the lack of transparency actually causes material damage to publishers. Like, if an advertiser optimizes away from your site because the middlemen were taking short term, like, revenue maximizing fees for them, not for you,
Yeah.
that's damage, right? That's foregone revenue that could be coming to you as a publisher. And like that's a thing. Publishers should care about this and should be like, "Hey, I want to make sure that as much working media is being deployed as possible, not because I care about like transparency, but because I want to get as many budgets as possible for as long as possible. And the more expensive I seem past working media, the more advertisers are going to optimize away from my site."
But Gareth, why, you said before there's just a pre-bid line and almost all demand is coming through pre-bid now.
Mhm,
Amazon's bidding through pre-bid. So why,
mhm.
why isn't the market fixing this yet?
I so I wrote the article because publishers were complaining about dynamic rev shares, but nobody knew why. And so I was like, wait, why should publishers not like these? And I actually think this is a really legitimate reason for publishers to not like these. But again, it's incentive, right? You said the buy side doesn't care. Publishers are a very, very, very soft voice because at the end of the day, they really wield very little power over exchanges and DSPs. And there is something to publishers saying that exchanges are extensions of DSPs. They are both buy side interested tools because they're both just trying to spend money and make as much margin as possible while doing it. The
Yep.
amount they pay to the publisher, they're not particularly concerned about. So in the industry, right, ironically, the advertisers and publishers' interests are probably the closest aligned in that advertisers want to deploy capital to working media to achieve results, as much of that as possible, and publishers want their results to occur so that they make as much money as possible. And the more that gets carved out in the middle, the worse off publishers are. So the problem is really the incentives, right? The DSP and SSP incentives are not to allow people to optimize to working media because optimizing to working media inherently means optimizing to reducing their fees. And don't nobody want that for their company. Like, look
Yeah.
at Putmatic's poor stock price. It's hurting. If we were to go to Putmatic's investors and say, hey, you know what? We're implementing this new initiative where we're going to take those 25% margins and we're just going to squeeze them as much as we possibly can. It's not good for them. It's
For volume, I
bad.
mean, no, there is an argument. You say we're going to charge less and get higher volume, and I think that way, and Casali thinks that way, and I'm sure you would get there too you know, if you're if you were a little bigger. But the
I love that way. I agree with that.
yeah, like if you that's where it goes, right? If the market functions and all these capabilities become commoditized, then it's who could provide the most efficient solution. That's the lowest price, highest volume. So, there's certainly a version of it. But I just want to know more directly. If I'm a publisher and I have all these bids coming through pre-bid,
Yeah.
how does a bad actor get its hooks in me and start taking money away? Because if they're taking fees that are too big, then I'll notice, right? They won't
No, you
win.
won't.
So is he saying that
Yeah.
they take really low fees until they're getting a lot of volume
Oh,
on
no, no,
my
no.
site
So
and then they
it's
switch
all a
it?
flat auction, right? So the key is one of these really good dynamic rev share players. And this is actually fascinating. So if you look at a bid stream, right, and you're a publisher and you look at the bids that come in, it's bundled at the ends. So there's very high frequency at low CPMs, and then there's like low frequency at high CPMs, but there's like this weird tail in the middle where people don't bid in the middle. They bid high, they bid a little bit super high, and they bid low. So it looks
Hmm,
like this.
weird.
And the super high bids are really asymmetrical.
Yeah, they're
So
cooking for in-market auto and in-market weight loss. Yeah, it's mostly
correct, but
in-market home improvement.
because of throttling and because of things like that, you don't get three really high bids at once. That's very rare. Quite often, only one bidder will send a really high bid. And those are the moments when those exchanges can capitalize on their value, where they go, "Ooh, I got a hot bid in. Some DSP thinks this person is in market. I'm going to take a beast rev share on this." And that same high bid will not go through other exchanges at the same time. And this is throttling, distributed computing, whatever it is. But exchanges don't move in a pack; they move like one at a time, and it's really weird. Um,
But the source data for in-market auto, like there's no reason a publisher can't have that data and also know that this is an in-market auto person loading my site. Polk says they're in market for an SUV, so I'm going to make
well,
my floor really high for this one.
this is correct. So there are two components to this. One is Gamera gives this data to publishers. I give them a per user historical CPM and fill rate, and I have publishers who use this to inform their floors. However, the dangerous part of that game is in a first price auction, if you're a publisher and you throw a floor on it and you swing and you miss, your revenue is zero, right? And that's bad. like that's not good. So it's really tricky to use a floor to capture those high value users because you can think it's the case, and then if you're wrong, you really get punished.
Shit, that does
Yeah,
sound
man.
hard.
It's I mean, and it's really tricky, right? And it's because of this asymmetry. It's why you found that your reach was maximized when you went through 4 exchanges. It's because even for your users, different exchanges light up at different times because everyone's doing this horrible user sync cookie, whatever it is. And for some reason, working with more makes it work better. I still don't understand why this whole thing is such a mess. It's so frustrating. I mean, I understand why, but I hate it. It's dumb. And like identity should be managed at the publisher level. The fact that identity is a differentiator for exchanges is bad. That's a bad thing. Like
Yeah, bad
it's
for privacy, right? It's this huge aggregation of user data. You know,
totally. Oh, it's bad for everything. These companies are not identity companies. It's not what they do. Even though I know OpenX like said, "Oh, exchanges are going to be identity companies." Like what? No, you're
no wonder they would go out and sell PMPs. Like that's the rational move right then for a publisher would be to like, all right, we're going to package up our own environment where we know things are going on, where we know what the page is worth and what the ID is worth, and we'll do the optimization. We'll
this
just
this is
yeah.
this is what I pitch publishers on all day is I'll build you your own data set that is not in the bid stream. You can use it to go sell PMPs that perform better. And the idea is, I had this conversation with one of my really big pubs last week. It's a really good one. Um, Buyers aren't buying places, right? Buyers are buying users, and place is one optimization node that is appended to the user. And
Geographic place, yeah.
oh, no, 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 not just geographic place,
Page.
page and location on the page, right? Placement within the page, which is what I do. And
Yeah.
the idea
Geographic
is,
location's a big one too, though.
oh, it's a beast one. Ari Paparo did his post on zip codes. It's fascinating. Um, so the question is not like, do I treat the place as a thing, right? Do I treat the place as the meaningful deliverer of value for the advertiser? And that's how it worked, in the 60s. But now people are buying user IDs. And the place is just one attribute associated with a user ID that they're already buying. And the goal is, how do you find the right places on your website that increase the value of your user IDs? And how do you label them properly and implement them
Yeah.
properly? And that is like the goal now. And publishers are still confused, right? Publishers still think, oh, people want to buy me just because I'm me, right? And it's like, no, 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 no. They're buying IDs. That's what they have, and they're happening to find those IDs on you, but they're not buying you. Like you
But
are
they're
a
well
deliverer of the
aware of the
IDs.
content plays now too, that the context and content plays are getting more sophisticated. That should give them an advantage as a quality publisher, but yeah, they haven't necessarily
Eh?
found that advantage yet.
Well, and the advertisers have that data. You don't have to go to say call up the New York Times as the only way to get quality. You don't have to do that.
Yeah,
You're doing your
but
own
talk to me
analysis.
about, I'm curious about the offerings from Dotdash Meredith and now Hearst that seem to
Mhm.
be like title specific or publisher specific,
Yeah.
contextual offerings based on, LLM processing they did internally. I never heard
I,
much about how well those work.
I mean, I can't imagine they work any better than what Chalice does or what Scope 3 does, right? Like, like how could they?
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, at best, it's the same tech. We're
at
at the
best, it's the
cutting edge.
same.
But does it? I guess my question is, is it increase motivation on the pub side? Like, does it at least appear successful enough that your publisher clients are saying, "Oh, I better get help," or gain the ability to run all my text through LLM so I can have better reading of context for every page I sell.
Yeah, one, there are people who offer to publishers like to do it for them. And two is publishers are bad sellers, right? They're not out there closing deals with advertisers and agencies. So a lot of publishers pay for something to do this and then they go, what do I do with it? And so they
Mm.
try to fire it into the bid stream. But like if a publisher fires their own
That's not going to
categorization
work.
into you, yeah, it's not going to work. You're going to
Who
be like,
offers
no, no,
for
no,
them to
no, I
do
have
this?
my own.
Who's offering for them
Oh
to?
God, anyone who says they're a publisher DMP, Adam. Just
Yeah,
there's a whole category of
category of
companies,
publisher DMPs.
yeah, that are happy to take money from publishers because publishers feel like they need to have an audience strategy and then deliver no.
How far are you going onto the delivery side? Like you're saying you're not going to be a DMP. You're helping them with a lot of data, but you're going
Yeah.
further into deployment. How far into deployment are you going?
Yeah, so I think very specifically about what we do as a signal. We are a point provider that provides a very valuable signal that is an inventory signal. And we are in the world of, I don't think one signal is ever enough to structure a PMP, even though people do demand it of me. So I give people PMPs when they want them with my signal appended. But I think that the long-term vision for me is that we are a signal that becomes a driver of optimization for people who are delivering ads. And so, like I was saying earlier, right, you have all your user ID valuations. When a Gamera signal is present when you're doing your valuations, it's a meaningful, right, statistically significant indicator of how well that advertisement will perform.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
I, but I'm
That's
never
what I
gonna
thought.
be, yeah, yeah, yeah. I really want to stay narrow, right? Like that's like my
Yeah.
goal is to stay narrow, stay focused, and like create
And wait
something
for
that has
frag
actual
validation.
value. Yeah, it's like picking one. I mean, there are other companies out there that do silly things. Like they do much better IP geo mapping. They do much better user agent to like device mapping, and they add value. Like those companies are cousins of mine. How do we do certain signals in the bid stream in the best possible way? And when you do the signals that even exist already, just better, campaigns perform better. And it's almost like its own category of company where it's like a signal enhancer.
Yeah. Well, where are you on the struggle to get these signals in bid requests?
Well, I work with a few exchanges who also have DSPs, and they are already ingesting them. That is
Hmm.
live.
Hmm.
And then there are a couple of, I mean, don't get me wrong, a bunch of exchanges cannot ingest impression level signals. Like they can't do it. It's not possible. There are
Hmm.
two fields in prebid, right, where you can ingest data. One is site ext.site and ext.site.imp. Ext.site is page level, so all auctions on that page get the same value. That's traditionally used for contextual, right? Because in theory, every ad on the same page is the same context. Even
Yeah.
though I think even that deserves examination. But site.imp is for each auction, what are the attributes? And my data has to flow into site.imp because when I think about things, I think about, oh, where is this ad unit? What is the ad density in the viewport when this ad is delivering? What is blah, 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 all the things that I do. And there are like 3 exchanges that can do it.
The exchanges
Index
that
is one of
carry
them.
the site imp values to the buy side.
I mean, nobody carries it to the buy side besides media.net. 3 that will let me send it in and target it.
What do you
Site.imp.
mean?
So I could target it in a PMP. So like in index, I can target site.imp. So if I set up a
You mean
campaign,
you could curate sets
I
of
can
values.
curate using it.
Yeah.
Correct. But they don't pass it through. That doesn't go through. No, no way. And no, there are no DSPs who listen to it, even if I could pass it through.
Well,
Um,
Chalice will listen to it when you can get it through. Is anyone saying they will send it through?
yeah, the next says we'll get to it eventually.
All right.
And I promise if I really chased Judd down about it and I had someone who would send it, I'm sure I could get Judd to do it.
Judd Spencer at Trade Desk.
Yeah.
But I
He's
mean,
he's motivated, man. He does cool stuff. The problem is Trade Desk can't build things because they can build things, but they build very slowly because they build like any large company does. It has to be considered. It has to run through the product cycles. Their roadmap is already full. I'm like certain it's full. It's life being a big company. Um,
they're big S&P 500.
S&P 500, man, power to them. It's a major achievement. It's really cool. But yeah,
Let's get
it's getting there.
good. Glad to hear it. Glad for the update. And have you started fundraising yet?
The phone calls begin next week. So if you're interested, reach out.
Yeah, likewise.
I got a
Actually, not allowed to do that.
no, not allowed to do that.
You're not allowed to open up your equity sale. I forgot why not.
Really? That's
Yeah,
so interesting. I have to reach out. Um,
it's something to do with accredited investors, and if you do it open, then it implies something else that you don't want. I forgot
oh,
what.
oh God, that's terrible.
Yeah, you could say like if you're an accredited investor or know someone, then
Yeah, there you go. That's what I meant to say. Accredited investors only. I have some questions that I got in via email.
All right, let's do it.
All right. How do we know ad servers don't have hidden priority rules for different demand sources or different latency bias for different SSPs? Should the buy side care? It's a sell side question.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that the Google trial was about, whether the ad server that runs the auction of auctions was fair or self-serving to Google was the big thing. So
Yeah.
it was found that it was biased and wasn't always trying to deliver the best price, especially for the publisher. It's easier to prove on the publisher side because it makes prices go up. Making prices go up for consumers, the consumers being publishers, is the easier case to prove in a court of law. But both sides should care. That is the ultimate auction, the ultimate decision. And right, the original name for an ad server providing this function was third-party ad server to indicate that it was neither the buyer nor the seller. So it's supposed to
Neutral.
be it's supposed to be neutral and in
It's
the
supposed to
middle.
be neutral. Yeah, and I think and how do we know ad servers don't have hidden priority rules? And there's 2 people who do hiding here, right? In the case of Google, it was the ad server itself doing the hiding, so the publishers were unaware of it. Simultaneously, publishers can configure their ad servers such that there are certain sources of demand that get priority, and that is not transparent to buyers, right? You won't know. So like this is an easy, simple implementation of this is you can set up higher priority line items for certain bidders. It's possible to do, where when one of your pre-bid bidders bids a higher number, their bid has more weight. It's not decided based on price. It's decided based on the fact that this bidder bid. So that is absolutely a thing where in the final ad server auction, certain people can get preferences. That is possible.
No. Easy solution. Give people their log files. Like all the excuses around log files are outdated. People used to say it's too much data, you can't store it all. Well, now there's Snowflake. It's very easy and cheap to store all that data. They used to say it's expensive for us to share it. Now Snowflake has something called a share. You don't need an API. It's just shared across borders of Snowflake databases, right? And this is true of the other databases, Amazon S3 buckets and whatnot. There's no cost in sharing these big amounts of data. And then the last excuse, which is really Trade Desk's excuse, which I've had some sympathy before, is we don't trust what you're going to do with it. We don't trust your analysis to be accurate and fair to
That's
us,
funny.
right? Which I think was is kind of valid because I mean, I had that experience as a head of programmatic at an agency. Like we were transparent, and there were many cases where we were punished for our transparency, and that because we provided full logs and transparent, we're the ones who they go to for a discount or the accusation that we're ripping them off because in contrast to Google, if you give no data, no one can make any case, right? They can
Yeah.
only guess. But if there's data, then you can misinterpret it and make a case. You can intentionally or accidentally misinterpret it. And I think that excuse is going away too, because you could take very large data sets and let OpenAI answer questions about them, right? Like what is happening when someone bids 250 and how is this exchange? Well, you could just ask it, like, what prices is this exchange showing for it's the analysis part has gotten also much easier and cheaper and easier to get to double check and get accurate results. So all the excuses are running out. Log files should be flowing all over the place, should be stored by every big advertiser and publisher, and they should be using LLM tools to help interpret these results, right? To get the patterns and the secrets out of this data. And I think an easy way to talk about market dysfunction in ad tech would be nobody has their data. No one knows what's happening, right? There's so much obscured, and people are using these antiquated excuses to keep people from getting essentially their receipts for what they buy. You buy a buying machine or a selling machine, it's taking money from your action. Give people the fucking receipts. They're paying.
I
Thank
mean, if you were running a business where you didn't have to give people receipts, you would have to be dragged kicking and
Yeah,
screaming into
obvi
giving receipts.
obviously that's lack of competition. It's antiquated. Like, you know, we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see what
I'm
happens.
and when I like see what a few companies out there doing that do it, I mean, Fiducia does this log level analysis. That's their whole spiel, and
Yeah.
I love it. It's great. The transparency is just going to make programmatic work better.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it should
I,
all be free, right? Like there's really no cost associated with these things anymore. So that's what something Chalice will try to do is make things very close to free or very cheap to do log file analysis and help encourage the market to everyone to participate in supplying log files and trust that it's not going to run up a lot of cost or a lot of misinterpretation. It'll be the truth coming out.
hey man, I think it's the future. And somebody from Bayer posted on X that I always really like to see, which they're like, why are there no brands that get their start in programmatic? And
Hmm.
I truly believe it is because nobody has receipts on either side, and we have two companies that are trying to maximize the margin they make instead of just one. And when you have just one, at the very least, there's a feedback loop between we're being too greedy, the CPAs are too high. And when there are two, that feedback loop doesn't exist, right? Like, they're just like,
Yeah.
well, I can't tell if I'm being too greedy, so I'm just going to be as greedy as possible.
Was
And that's never going to work.
was the Bayer person talking about brands? Like not, I mean, there's a lot of middlemen who started in programmatic and made a lot of money, but did they mean advertisers?
Yeah, advertisers like D2C brands, like and
Yeah.
things like that. They're like, why aren't D2C people starting in programmatic? It's like, well, there's no feedback loop on too much greed. And if you're
I
running in
don't think it's true.
Facebook knows.
Netflix had a big run where their subscription driving was all programmatic display.
Oh yeah, I think he means from 0 to 100. So like, or
Yeah.
not from 0 to 100, from 0 to 15. Where are the 0 to 15 brands? Where's the person who has a drop ship and a dream and builds a
Yeah.
business on programmatic? It's very rare. I'm sure it's happened, but it's
Well,
very
it's like
rare.
you could go to Chalice and like we'll build up a data set for you, or you could go to Facebook that's going to let you use competitors' data, right? If I have an exercise bike, I want to use Peloton data, so I'm going to go to Meta where they'll let me use that.
Sure do.
That's that's the real reason is like these crazy data collectives that are sort of built to help small advertisers benefit from the data of big advertisers. So that's a big reason.
I'm sure DSPs have tried though. So there are some
Yeah, Rocket
DSPs out there
Fuel,
who are
yeah,
like,
Rocket
let's
Fuel and
pool.
Criteo both were huge remarketing collectives in their
Yeah,
day.
and it's interesting though that they like had this tremendous emergence and then they croaked. And affiliate advertisers always used to tell me that. They're like, hey, if I'm going to use programmatic, I'll try out remarketing. Like, sure, retargeting will work for me,
Yeah.
but no prospecting will ever work for me. Like, I'll never just go in there and
Yeah.
buy. It won't be a thing. Um,
I think we could do it. I think we could do it now. I mean, CTV is effective. You have to build up some data, so there'll have to be like a third or second party data partner. But I would take that on as a project if you had a DTC person who had a reasonable skepticism of Meta and was looking for something better and willing to invest to get there. Because it wouldn't be instant, right? Meta is instantly will find you people in market for your category because it's a data cooperative, data socialism.
could you charge people to use your data as a big advertiser? Like, could that be a business? We're like, hey,
Yeah,
I'm Peloton. I'm going to
that's what
spend
the
$100
retail
million
media
dollars
networks
advertising.
are.
It's true. That is in their purest form. That's what they do, right? They're charging
Yeah,
people to use their data. You just have to be big enough. I just wonder if you could do it without building a retail media network. If you're like, hey, Chalice, I'm Peloton. I spend $100 million a year on marketing. You can let other bike companies use my data, but I want 3% of spend.
yeah,
I want 5% of spend.
yeah. We're definitely doing
And
that. It's very hard to do the division after a certain point, but it definitely devalues data. Like it comes back to that conversation we were talking about. It's like, do you want volume or price? Like a
mm,
data company that's really good at collecting a certain kind of data and would rather have volume for price. We could power algorithms for a rev share with them all day long and get a lot of volume. But there's another set of data companies that say they're premium data and you have to pay a premium price and well, we'll see. I'll have to see where it lands. But I think there will be a marketplace. There's definitely a challenge in modeling to say how much of your fuel fueled this model.
right.
We're
I mean,
negotiating deals like that. People are, it's working out.
I mean, it's also funny because in theory, you could start a meta marketing company where all you do is buy users to create data sets without a product unto itself, and then
Panels.
but monitor their efficacy. Yeah.
Panel companies are that too. Like if you could, like no one has really tried to have a representative panel, but if you design the company to have a representative purchase panel in France or Germany where there's very thin data, like you could probably make a lot of money by getting it to be a representative set of purchasers. Um, Say like there is some ability you might be interested to like you could score a model and then take out a data set and score it again. So
Yeah.
you could quantify how much that data is helping, but the results are really disappointing for the data providers because once you have a massive data, any one thing you pull out makes almost no difference. So
It's so interesting.
yeah.
Um,
So it's like, oh, the value is zero. Like, but
this, this is just making me want to harvest Facebook data. Like go into Facebook, run a CPC campaign targeting, something very specific, cookie them
yeah,
all, and then just give this to programmatic and be like, oh, programmatic, now you can buy
been
this data.
done.
You can,
It's been
yeah.
Trump
I mean, that's what
campaign
MFA was.
2016. Yeah, the way all our parents found out what we do. It wasn't good. If you don't remember.
Yeah, that was it's its own thing. Um, yeah, do we have any questions today? Is it quiet out there?
You have another emailed one?
Let me see. Um,
Marley wanted to know how to pronounce patchogue.
that's not an easy one. It's like quag, which I learned from
Is
Family
it
Guy when I was a
is it
kid.
patchogue? She suggested patchogue.
Could be. Um, should the buy side care about latency biases for different SSPs? I don't think so. I think it's gonna come out in the wash. So I
Yeah,
think that a lot of SSP stuff comes out in the wash where you're bidding
yeah,
into a
their tech's
unified
bad.
auction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll see it in the monetization now.
100%. Just know where you're buying, please. Because I really think that there's also untold damage done to publishers by people buying against domains and page lists without discerning the source of the inventory because resellers sneak stuff in there. They do. They sneak refreshes in there. They sneak crazy things in there. So if you're going to buy for resellers, and don't get me wrong, there are some high value resellers. I had a call with my buddy yesterday. They are a reseller, but they do it based on unique data that they have that increases the value of impressions. They don't like create incremental impressions. You're not buying anything different than is in the normal auction. They're just layering their data in. I
How?
could be convinced. So basically, they have to sit on the page and
Ah,
choose which impressions get sent to auction and which ones don't. And it's that simple, where they're like, we think these are good ones, these are bad ones. There are a few resellers who do this. This is also like what what are they called? Adagio does, where
hmm.
they model like viewability, and they say, oh, okay, we're going to start an exchange that just has viewable impressions in it. We're going to charge more money for it, but they're all going to be viewable, and advertisers optimize to them because when
If
you
they're
buy
on
from
the
them, you
page,
only
why
get
aren't they
viewable
direct?
insights. No DSPs will do those integrations. Every single one of these companies would love to be direct. They would love to be direct to DSP, and DSPs won't do it. Every
Why?
single one.
What's different about them to DSPs? That they're just sitting on the page as they're just a tag and not servers?
No, DSPs won't do the integrations because DSPs are like, well, so what's different is they have their data and they can tell the DSP, I'm only going to send you requests that have my data that's differentiating the impressions. I actually think DSPs should be a lot more liberal in the integrations they do. I think they should be adding like more people based on good data. Um, but they don't, especially not DV360. DV360 doesn't want any more impressions from anywhere. So like the only way for these guys to shoehorn this in is their reseller strategy, where all the old exchanges have the integrations, and so they're like, oh, okay, fine, I'll do this through the old exchange instead of directly to the DSP.
Ah, that's crazy. I know about that.
Yeah, man, it's a thing. It's a whole class of company where they like are a layer that bids in front of the ad exchange. And every single company in that position, I promise you, does not want to be in that position. They would much prefer to be selling directly to DSPs with their secret sauce baked in. And DSPs just don't do the integrations out of them. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that because we just avoid reseller mostly. But yeah, we should filter through it, find these good ones, and try to buy more directly from them without
Yeah,
the
there are a
markup.
couple. I'll eyeball them for you.
Yeah, thanks.
There's a few out there. But yeah, it's so dumb. Like why there's a whole exchange layer there that just doesn't need to be there. Because most of these guys call the exchanges server to server. They call them via OpenRTB. And literally they call the exchange via OpenRTB for the exchange to call the DSP via OpenRTB, and it just drives
So
me
they have to
crazy.
respond. They have to respond within like 10 or 20 milliseconds to
Oh, they
pass
gotta be real quick. Yeah.
and pass it along. So
Yeah,
another
man.
thing, it does it turn up in the publisher's receipts?
Publisher has no clue because there's no audit trail. It's not a thing. Nobody is appending rev shares to these transactions. They're just not being appended. You can try and math your way through it where this bid here was this. If you can get every single in the participant in the auction to provide you with a join key, that's another thing that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
There are
there's no
not
impression
really
ID.
join keys.
Yeah.
So like there's no real way to line up. And here's the thing. There is a page level join key. There is a pre-bid auction transaction ID. It exists. Every single person in the supply chain could store it, and then we could line it all up with logs from every system. People don't do it. Nothing. Sad.
I thought we were going to store it on the blockchain. What happened to
Somebody stole the blockchain, I heard.
that?
Maybe it was Putin.
Uh, so I thought Trade Desk really wanted an auction ID to cut down bid duplication. Like who is stopping the auction ID from becoming
They talked
standard?
about doing it with GPIDs. That's the value of a GPID, and that's why GPIDs are built on GAM ad unit IDs, is
But that
because
wouldn't get to the
GPIDs are
auction
consistent.
ID. That wouldn't get you an auction.
But it's not auction specific.
Who's block?
Well,
Why doesn't come on? If I ask Tony at IAB Tech Lab why the auction ID is not being standardized right now, what is he going to say?
it's totally standardized. Pre-bid sends a transaction ID.
Oh,
It already exists. It's there. People don't store it.
but can't Trade Desk say we're not gonna buy from you if you don't send us an auction ID?
I mean, Trade Desk has OpenPath at them. Trade
They
Desk
don't
doesn't
care.
need exchanges. Like they know. The
Hmm.
only reason they buy from anything other than OpenPath is because their clients make them.
Hmm.
Um, which still drives me crazy. And I ask people about OpenPath, and people go, "Yeah, it's more expensive." I'm like, "Is it? Are you sure you're buying the same thing? Because I don't think you are. I think you're buying something else if it looks more expensive." Um,
Yeah, it could be
yeah, it
higher
drives me
quality
crazy.
impressions. Yeah.
That's all I can think of. Or Trade Desk hides a bunch of fees in there, which is the supposition of some people, is that Trade Desk is shimmying fees into OpenPath and is across whatever. But I'm a skeptic of that. I tend to think that they're pretty above board. Um, Yes, it's
Yes.
fascinating. I don't, the transaction ID would really solve a lot of problems if everyone in the supply chain stored it, because now a log level company could just do a really simple analysis of this transaction ID at every participant in the supply chain, and now you can back into the fees and working media. Um, but it's not a
We're
thing.
doing some serious research at Chalice. I'll have some stuff to show hopefully by fall. 'Cause we're digging into some of this stuff. So far, we're finding mostly mysteries. Like our questions are just flowering into more questions. So I'll bring you some on the show. But the craziest finding so far, which we already discussed, is that DV360 will go against the PMP like a motherfucker. It'll just devote crazy QPS to
Yeah,
any PMP. Does not care.
I've
Uh,
seen this.
yeah.
I've set up PMPs in Index Exchange, the exact same settings, for 5 different DSPs. And DV360 will listen to basically every single request. And
Yep.
other DSPs will throttle down 50, 60, 70, 80% of them.
Yeah, I'm not going to use
It's
the word
crazy.
throttling because my DSP partners are saying it's not throttling. So I'll just call it a mystery.
I mean, I've written articles about throttling. I think people throttle and don't know. That's why they think it's not throttling, because they don't know. There's the algorithms have algorithms built on top of them at this point, and it's just the whole thing's a mess. Um,
We had one where we're in our container where we understand our QPS. We know our QPS and we watch our QPS all the time. We found a lot of QPS being sucked up by a few big domains. Like the home pages of big domains. So like we don't necessarily want to be, and it was an unreasonable share of traffic. So we cut them, expecting that our QPS would replace it with other pages out on the long tail. That is 200 billion bid requests a day or whatever that are passing
yeah, yeah.
through. But it didn't happen. Our traffic just went down. Why would that? What could that be? We're supposed to be upstream of the throttling filters, the supply side throttling filters. So
Mm.
that's a mystery, right? We're gonna get the answer to
I'm,
that one. And I'll give it to
I,
you.
I I would really yell at people about the throttling.
I
Because I'm telling you, it is it is like
think that could
when
be like domain specific. Like if it doesn't see a domain, it'll
there are
throttle
all
the
kinds of
the
crazy things
deal.
that they throttle on. They throttle on everything. If they don't see proper bid density from placements, they throttle it down. And this is a relic of DSPs optimizing to win rate and things like that. I'm telling you, these throttling systems are really deep in the exchanges and the DSPs. And there's a all right,
How do they know
we
the
had
bid
some.
density? DSPs
Oh,
don't
just
know.
historical bid density. I'm talking about sell side throttling.
Oh,
If you didn't have backfill QPS, this sell side throttling is what's keeping that from happening. I'm 99% sure. And I think that there are so many relics in here. I'm gonna use a term. So we talked Zappa's is a postmodern guy. I was an English major. I studied postmodern poetry, whereas my wife. But I also studied philosophy of science, and there's a theory in philosophy of science. There's a term that I really, really like because it's an interesting term to describe things. It's called emergence. So there's a concept in science that all science is built on all other science, which is that chemistry can be reduced to physics, can be reduced to math,
oh yeah.
and the theory there, right, is that eventually it's turtles all the way down. Everything can be predicted and described with math. I am a believer in this. However, there are things that we refer to as emergent. Emergent things are things that occur that are not the obvious result of the properties that precede them. So, an example of this, the classic example, and I know we're almost at time, but this is a fun one, is the Schelling experiment. Thomas Schelling, he was an author, he was a game theory guy, and basically the theory of racial distribution in cities. And basically, what happens is he said set up a board, right, with two colors of coins, and those are going to represent the two groups of people. And when you prescribe preferences, where say coins of one color want to be around 20% coins of the same color, right? Which we would not think of as a prejudiced perspective, right? They want 80% diversity surrounding them, 80% around them are coins not like them. But if that condition is not met, they randomly pop somewhere else on the board. When you set those preferences and you set the experiment loose, the board becomes completely segregated and it ends up with 100% similarity. So that is a classic example of something emergent where a 20% preference results in basically 100% segregation when you actually set it out into the wild. So I think a lot of this throttling stuff is emergent. I think that there are a lot of things that people are configuring that are interacting with other things that people have configured that are resulting in things that they didn't predict would happen, and don't understand why they're happening. Because the scale is so big, the algorithms are so complex, it's gotten all weird, and I 99% of the time, whenever I run into these issues, they're like, "Hey, we can tweak a thing, see what happens." But very rarely are people like down to the bottom of it. Like, this is the exact math that will make this work. Like, it's just drives me crazy. Drives me crazy, man.
Mind blowing. All right,
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see if you're right in coming weeks. We're supposed to be upstream of the sell side throttling, so
it's supposed to be. But you know what else throttling does? Throttling saves companies money. And I'll bet there is front door throttling where there are impressions that we will not even consider because we think that they are not going to result in revenue for us.
publishers want more bid density, right? So if there's not enough bid density, they might throttle it if they think there's only going to be one bidder.
Correct. Or no bidders, right? That would be the probabilistic outcome where I would build a front door throttle is, hey, I got a request in from a publisher. I think that there is a 1% chance that anyone bids anything on this. Why would we hold an auction for this? Right? The likelihood that we as a company make money on this is a pure cost for us. So don't do it.
All right, with that, I'm going to ask Maldo to take us out.
Thanks, Maldo.
He's got to go see his in-laws.
All right, guys. Talk
Thanks
to you
for
soon.
everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Yo, the crowd is back, the lights are dim. Front rows buzzing, it's about to begin. Adtech, ad talk, they're taking the stage.